We are here at Intercoiffure, New York with Laurence Hegarty, Ruzel. Laurence, I'm going to let you explain to our audience what Ruzel is for the few who are not hanging out online and may not know what it is, and its genesis.
Okay. Well, Ruzel is a brand of men's grooming products. It was created by the barbers at Scorum Barbershop in Rotterdam. We released the product in March of 2015 in Canada. We basically followed our Facebook fans, which we have many hundreds of thousands of. Mm-hmm. And when we decided to launch the product, we got in the back end, saw where our fans were from, and that was how we prioritized where we were going to launch our distribution. It's really been completely a social media driven product. So we launched in Canada and Europe and Australia in 2015. So far this year we've launched into Japan and most of Asia and Mexico. And starting last month, we started to launch distribution in the US. So we started in California and the Northwest. Now we're sort of moving into the East Coast and the Midwest, and just sort of getting our feet wet into the American market, which is obviously a totally different beast than everywhere else.
and one that you understand, because you have a little bit of history in the men's market in America, well, so maybe talk about that.
Yeah, well, my history is, I've been in the hair business for a long time. I started out in the late 70s in London as an apprentice. Came to America when I was 23 years old. I was very, very lucky. I can consider that I had 3 apprenticeships, basically. I had an apprenticeship in London where I learned how to cut hair and sweep floors and do that stuff. I was very lucky. After I came to the States, I met a gentleman called Horst, who told me about a new product line that he was launching.
Called
Aveda. And I ended up moving to Minneapolis. This was in 1983. Back then, Aveda had distribution in North and South Dakota, Minnesota, and Wisconsin, and that was it. And I remember the goal the first year was to try and do $1 million. Obviously, that was a great success, and I consider that my second apprenticeship, because that's really the first time I ever saw products being made and tested products and heard people talking to distributors and talking about contracts and all those kind of things that I'd never been exposed to. I stayed there for 5 years, and it was a really incredible learning experience. After that, I wanted to open a salon, but I didn't want to do it in Minneapolis because I'd actually been managing horse salons for him as well, and I didn't feel comfortable about doing that. And very luckily, I ran into a very good old friend of mine from New York and London days, David Raculia, and he had just moved back to Chicago. So we opened a salon in Chicago together in 1989, which was kind of like a third apprenticeship, because I'd never really worked in a salon before, behind the chair. In London, I'd gone straight from being an apprentice straight into freelancing and education. At Horst Salons, I did some management of his salons, but my main goal was to be on the road with him, doing hair. So building a clientele was a new thing for us, and it was, David and I did something very unusual in as much as we moved to a city and opened a hair salon. And we also decided that we were not going to hire any hairdressers who had followings. We were just going to try and get ourselves established, have an apprentice. When we were established and the apprentice was ready, we'd put them on the floor. And that's really how we built Art and Science. We literally did not have a single client the first day that we opened. We opened on Friday the 13th, I remember. And we had no clients, and we thought it was a terrible omen. And then we didn't have any clients on the second day. And then on the third day, David's auntie came in. She had colour and a perm and a haircut and everything done. But it was a great learning experience. From that, I think we really learned to understand how to generate clients. We made all the same mistakes everybody does. We wasted a lot of money on advertising in Chicago magazines and newspapers and Evanston newspaper, which basically brought us no return. And the thing that we realized pretty quickly that was it was really, really difficult to get female clients, new ones, because you really only get 2 chances to get a lady in your chair. And that is if she's just moved to the city and she doesn't have a hairdresser, or if her last hairdresser really, really messed up and she's really mad. And after a year or so, the thing that we really started to realize was it was a lot easier to get guys than it was to get ladies, because most guys didn't have a real affinity for a particular stylist. They tended to be walk-ins. We actually did this crazy experiment because we had a lot of time on our hands. We spent a lot of time sitting in the reception, looking out the window, you know, and we always noticed that guys would walk past and they'd kind of look through the window and they'd see it was very flowery inside. It was all aromatherapy and all that stuff, and then they would just keep walking. And so we did an experiment. We had 3 beautiful display windows in our original salon, and one day we just decided we were going to do a men's display. And we borrowed an old vintage sink from a salvage place and put a cutthroat razor and a shaving brush and backdropped it with a nice picture of a guy that we did. And all of a sudden those guys that would stop and look and then keep walking started coming in because they could see that we did something for men. After that, we just started to talk to all our female clients. They all had a brother or a husband or somebody that they could bring in, and it was a lot easier to get a woman to refer a guy than it was to get them to bring another woman in. And we discovered that, you know, a lot of people warned us, don't get too big a male clientele because they don't get chemicals done and they don't buy retail. And what we soon discovered was what we lost in chemical services we more than made up for in the frequency of their visit. Because I opened a salon believing this old adage that women come in every 6 weeks, which turned out to be complete baloney. They come in every 8 or 10 or 12, and I think nowadays, especially with the colouring techniques that have been popular in recent years, they come in even less because they leave with roots when they walk out the salon, so there's no reason to come back in. So, but guys come in every 3 or 4 weeks if they have short hair.
I was one of those guys,
yeah.
and like probably the second year David was open, I became a client.
Oh, really?
I don't remember you specifically. I'm sure you were there, and I was
much more young and handsome at that time.
I'm not sure if you had the beard or not, but I was an art and science client for many years because I worked at Pivot Point, went over at Clark and Howard Street.
And we did this crazy thing was we started realizing, well, the reason that guys weren't buying retail was because everything we had was very feminine. And we found a pomade in Japan that we just started having a friend of ours ship it over to us, and at that time the yen was really strong and the dollar was really weak, and it was the most expensive product we sold in the shop. It was $26 for a 2-ounce jar, and it was the #1 selling SKU in our whole salon. It outsold everything else, and it got so crazy that sometimes we'd run out and a box was still in transit from Japan, or it was held up in customs and whatnot, and guys got so worried about coming in and that we wouldn't have it that this product used to sell in little displays of 6 in a box. We started getting guys buying this box of 6. It was like $150, and that's when we realized that guys will buy something, but not if it's a woman's product. And so that was really where Dave and I really got very interested in the men's business. So. It was just it was that third apprenticeship on how do you build a business when no woman wants to come in and see you. You go after guys because they will.
And then out of that came a whole product line.
American Crew was born in the back room of the salon. It was okay. We've got this one product that sells really well to guys. Why not a range of products? And the same thing again, we talked to a lot of hairdressers about it, and they told us it's a terrible idea, guys don't buy retail. But when we spoke to consumers, they thought it was a fantastic idea. There hadn't been a men's product in the professional business at that point since arcade in the 60s. So there was definitely room for it. And then over the course of the next 2 or 3 years, everybody else seemed to agree it was a good idea, and next thing you know, everybody's got a men's line, But that was 20 years ago now, and I always think of sort of fashion as very cyclical. It's things change and they move along, and it's very much like fashion. When you start a brand, you get these very early adopters who are the hip people, the cool people. They take it first, and then you got like the next level of trendy people take it, and then it becomes very mass popular, and so those cool people don't like it anymore because uncool people like it. It's like the length of a skirt or whatever, there's those stages of adoption, you know. And, you know, back in 2013 when I walked into that barber shop in Rotterdam, which again, David was a guy, he said, you should go and see these guys. They'd love you. Go and talk to them. There's something going on in Holland with these guys. Just kind of got that same sort of feeling again, and I thought, you know, it's 20 years later. There's a whole generation of young men out there now who, you know, there's been other men's lines that they've seen since they were children, so they're not cool to them. You know, they want something new, and certainly with what the Lean and Burtis and the rest of the guys are doing at Scorum, it was so different than what I'd seen in a long time, and just the level of excitement at their barber shop was mind-blowing to me, to see people standing in line in the pouring rain for hours just to get a haircut or a shave was something that was incredibly intriguing to me. So it really kind of, it's my fourth apprenticeship, I guess, now, and that's learning from barbers about what's cool these days.
Well, barbers are very cool these days, you know, and the whole social media thing. I mean, you and I, we've both been in the industry a long time. We'd never met, and yet we kind of got to know each other on Facebook, you know, to kind of prove the whole social media thing. And then the barbers, the Scorum barbers, I mean, they've been a sensation.
Yeah.
And I don't know, what's your take on what's going on, first of all, with them and their influence on everything? Because I feel that, and then what that means from maybe an innovation perspective.
Well, I think I think they've. I mean, there's certainly some other guys out there doing it really, really good as well, but I think that they really sort of have influenced a generation of young barbers. I'm seeing more and more guys and girls going to barber school, which 5 or 10 years ago, you would have never done that. People would tell you it's such a waste of money, you're just going to have to come out and go to cosmetology school afterwards. But now, I mean, there's so many 20-somethings going to barber school, and 20-somethings opening barber shops, and so much of it, from an aesthetic point of view, is certainly very influenced by what the guys have been doing at Scorum in Rotterdam. I mean, I've actually even seen shops. There's actually barber shops now around the world that are almost exact copies of the shop, where people actually came to the shop, went around, took photos of everything, and have literally recreated it. There's one in Lisbon, in Portugal. There's one in Australia. I mean, they're identical. But the great thing is that with the barber community, there's a real sense of inclusion, and nobody kind of cares about that stuff. They just want everybody to succeed. There isn't a lot of that sort of jealousy, or one person's trying to be the best in town, and so they don't like everybody else, and vice versa. There's really a lot of camaraderie, and I think everybody just wants to see everybody else succeed, you know. And certainly for us as a brand with Rusal, the more barbers that succeed, the better. But just like in the old days, the reality is that most guys who try Rusal for the first time will probably get it as a gift from a woman who saw it at the salon, you know. So that's the way most guys get into products originally, is because they're gifted it, you know.
That's a great insight. So tell people where they can find Rusal online. How can they follow Rusal, connect with Rusal and the Scorum Barbers?
Yeah, well, Facebook first of all. There's Rusal Pomade Facebook page. There's also Scorum Facebook page, which is hugely followed. We have a website all around the world, www.rusalpomade.com. Also, now that we have distribution in the States, we're going to bring the guys to America next year and to do a tour. We just did our first tour in Canada, which was an absolutely amazing success. And again, it was amazing to see the power of social media, because, I mean, over the years, I've known through talking to distributors and whatnot, selling tickets for hair shows is a pain in their butt. They can never sell enough tickets. 2 weeks before the show, they're calling the salespeople up and cracking the whip. Come on, we're going to get some tickets sold. 1 week before the show, they're giving away free tickets to their best customers just to get somebody there. We did a 6-city tour of Canada 2 months ago. We did 6 shows in 8 days, and we did shows on days that you would normally never consider doing a show. We did a show on a Thursday night. We did a show on a Friday night. We did a show on a Saturday night. All just promoted on social media, and we asked the distributors to limit the audience to 250 people because the guys wanted to meet everybody afterwards. Lead and Birds love talking to customers. So the idea of the show was to do a 1.5 hour presentation and then a 1.5 hour social time. So we wanted to keep the audience of manageable size so the guys could actually get to talk to them. Plus, again, because of social media, people love having their picture taken with the score on barbers because they do the hashtagging, and then all of a sudden their shop gets seen by tens of thousands of people instead of a dozen or whatever. We did the first show in Vancouver, and it was 250 people. It was an incredible success. Unbeknownst to us, because all the tickets sold so fast, because we promoted them on social media, all the other distributors moved into much bigger venues. So by the time we got to the last show on the tour, we had 850 people.
Wow.
And that's all sold through social media. And that was, I think that was a Saturday night show. And everybody said, nobody's going to come to a show on Saturday. 850 people. And the guys still talked to every single person in the audience. So it took 2.5 hours of standing in line to meet Lean and Vertus, but that's what everybody did. Even the salon owners that the distributor said, oh, well, they'll never stick around. Not this guy, he's the best in town. They still stood in line like everybody else because everybody wanted to meet them, you know.
It's phenomenal.
Yeah.
So, Laurence Hegarty, thanks for being with American Salon.
My
Good luck
pleasure.
with Ruzel, and we look forward to seeing a lot of you guys out on the road.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.